This is Join Us in France, episode 342. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we look around France so you can best enjoy France as a destination. We talk about French culture, history, gastronomy, and everything it takes to have a great time in France. Today, I bring you a conversation with Elyse Rivin and Patricia Perry about the new normal in Paris and what it's like to visit France as travel starts up again. Elyse and I just came back from Paris and we want to tell you all about it. And did you know that for 3 years, the capital of France was in Brazzaville in the Congo? I will tell you about that after my chat with Elyse and Patricia. If you like what we do here at Join Us in France, consider supporting us by visiting joinusinfrance.com/boutique to check out my books, tours, and services. Follow Addicted to France on Instagram to see my photos of the new normal in Paris. I was quite the shutterbug. I'll post them this week. The best way to stay in touch with me and with the podcast is to sign up for the newsletter at joinusinfrance.com/newsletter. I only sent one photo of the day while in Paris. I should have known myself better. When I walk around Paris all day, by the end of the day, I am spent. But fear not, I've recuperated, and I will share a selection of my best photos with newsletter subscribers very soon. What a week it's been.
What a week it has been.
Not quite a full week.
Not quite
and
full,
yet.
But a week and 3.5 days.
Yes,
Yes.
it's been a week.
Yes.
I know how to
trying to live like a full week in 3.5 days.
Indeed. So let's talk about first of all, Patricia, thank you so much for hosting us.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Oh, I'm
Awesome.
delighted to have you. You've been a lot of fun.
Oh, and it's been delightful
Right.
delightful
It's
here.
been awesome. So we did a bunch of things since we got here
Oh,
on
I am so
Wednesday.
tired. She's killing me.
So when we got here, right away we went to the Musée de l'Armée for a Napoleon exhibit.
Napoleon n'est pas là.
Napoleon n'est plus.
No, Napoleon n'est plus.
Yes, it means he's dead.
Gone.
Yes, and it was all about Napoleon's death, and it was very nicely done. A bit on the morbid side, maybe?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like it dealt with the last, I guess from Elba on,
Yeah, it was, starting in Elba
Elba.
and
The decline.
the decline of Napoleon.
Yeah,
and it was
decline.
very interesting, it was very well done. And then in the afternoon...
Wait, you forgot about me.
Oh, that's true. While we were doing that,
Yes.
Elyse decided she wanted to do something different.
I went to see a very interesting show, which actually Patricia's already seen, which is about women in abstract art. And it was very interesting.
At the Pompidou, right?
At the Pompidou Center, which is undergoing massive work, beginning very soon, actually, beginning at the end of the year, I believe. They will be closing for a couple of years because they have massive
4
restructuration.
years.
No, they told me 2, but
Oh.
2 probably means 3. But they will be undergoing a lot of reconstruction work and whatever there's reinforcement and things like that.
Right.
But right now, as an opening exhibit, they have an exhibit that's very interesting because it really touches on the role of women in the history of art and painting, particularly, and how much they were put aside, which is a cause I am very, very concerned with.
Right. Yeah.
And it was a very good exhibit. It
That's
was a very, very interesting exhibit.
That's good. Then the next morning, we went...
No,
You forgot about the Louvre.
The Louvre.
Oh, the Louvre.
Then we all joined
That's right,
up.
that's
We
right.
all joined
We all
up.
joined up to go to the Louvre to
a sculpture exhibit.
Renaissance.
L'homme et corps. It's Italian Renaissance.
Italian Renaissance.
L'âme et le corps. Yes.
Italian Renaissance sculpture.
Yes. And that was
Okay.
It was okay. It was interesting. It was. I have a question because you might know the answer. I didn't pay attention really. Is it all from the Louvre collection, or was?
Oh no,
no, it's from all over.
When they do these special expositions,
it was enough
they
room.
may pull a few, like they pull Michelangelo's dying slaves.
Yeah, how they do that to transport them. Yeah. It was actually kind of neat because but it was specifically about the Renaissance and the image of the body in the Renaissance.
Right.
You know, a lot of it was free sculpture in bronze or in stone, which you know is not the same as full round sculpture. You know. But it was interesting. It was interesting, and there were a couple of really wonderful pieces there.
And it was so shocking to see the Louvre so empty.
Yes.
So everybody, you have to have a reservation to get in, and they're really controlling the number of people, in particular, that can go into the exposition area. So it's really, it's wonderful. You don't like being crowded. It's kind of sad because the Louvre has been empty for so long, and it's just now opening up again.
Yeah.
It seems like now you have to have a timed reservation for every museum because they're being careful.
Yes. They don't want to crowd everything,
Right.
everybody. Yeah. So the next day we went to La Villette, which is a little bit off of the beaten track, I guess. Yeah. It's by where the Symphonie de la Symphonie et le Conservatoire de Musique de Paris.
It's at the top end of the canal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Canal de l'Ourcq. And they had the best Napoleon exhibit we've seen. And we've seen quite a bit of Napoleon on this trip. But that Napoleon exhibit is awesome. Yeah. I was just blown away by how good it was. And it was very comprehensive. It was Napoleon, his life from a young man to his death. Mm-hmm. And it was not morbid. It was, cocorico kind of thing. Like cocorico meaning very French
nationalistic.
Proud. Yeah, very proud, But it was very well done. And they really went to the most important parts. They were very good, I think, at showing you all the turning points in Napoleon's life, be they for the better or for the worse.
Right. The curators were obviously very well informed about Napoleon and in the particular period they were speaking about.
Right.
And then the images and the paintings and it was all very well put together.
Yeah. I thought it was an outstanding. So that one, I don't know how long it's going to be here. But if you're going to be in Paris in 2021...
I think till September, but I'm not sure.
Right. It would be worth checking out if it's still there. Because that was just awesome. Especially if you're interested in Napoleon. Really.
Even if you're not, I think you'll find some things that you will find interesting about him that I'm sure you didn't know.
And it was good at just making it simple, which is really hard to do when you talk about Napoleon. It's so hard. It's so easy to get lost in the weeds with Napoleon. And they did not. I think, and it was very modern type of presentation, very, surprising and beautiful, and it was great. I really enjoyed that very much. Then we went to a lovely place, Le Foyer de la Madeleine. So that's a little restaurant underneath La Madeleine Church.
In the basement.
Yeah, in the basement.
In the basement.
Right. And it's kind of, so to eat there, you have to buy a membership. You have to buy a yearly membership, but that's only €5. So it's not that much. And then you pay for your meal, which was €12, I think.
Yeah, €12 for entree, plat, and dessert.
Yes. And it was fine. I didn't love the food or anything, but it was for a good cause because what happens is, at lunch, they serve people who can pay for the meal, and then at dinner, they serve the homeless.
And maybe people don't know. The Madeleine is a very interesting church because it's this enormous church that's built to look like a Greek temple.
Right.
And so it doesn't really look like a church from the outside. And it's also a building that's undergoing work.
Right.
Lots of them are.
Right. And so if you're in the area and you would like to try something very French, it's older volunteers for the most part who serve you and welcome you and all of that.
And the chefs in the kitchen too.
The chefs in the kitchen are all volunteers. Mm-hmm. Everybody's volunteering and it's a lovely place. It's a beautiful place. I thought it was an excellent discovery. I had never been there before.
And I just want to add something because it's true. It's very close to the opera, to the Opéra Garnier. It's actually, if you can visit both places, it's just not even a 10-minute walk from one to the other. But what I loved right around the Madeleine, the actual church, is there's this kind of mini park. And not only do they have benches, but they have some benches set up with tables so you can picnic outside.
Yeah, that's nice.
Which is very civilized.
Yes, it's very nice. It's very nice. That afternoon, we went to Malmaison.
Malmaison.
So that was a full Napoleon day for me and Patricia, because we did La Villette in the morning and Malmaison in the afternoon. Malmaison, it's a little further away.
It's not further, a little further out than I thought.
It's on line A, so you just have to take it, and then there's a bus from La Défense or Ruelle de la Maison.
Right. So it's west. It's west of Paris.
Yes, it's very west. It's still worth going. I thought it was, an older, a bit stuffy French museum.
So it was the home of Josephine Beauharnais, who became Josephine Bonaparte and then went back to being Josephine Beauharnais when they got divorced. And she lived in it until her death. And she loved that house. And it's surrounded by these beautiful rose gardens.
Right. It's a beautiful place. One thing that sticks in my mind is the Cèdre du Liban. So it's a Lebanese cedar tree that they planted. So it's very old. It's very large. The rose bushes. So
one side was nicer.
One side of the garden had been tended to better than the other, but that's probably temporary. That's probably going to go back.
It was really a nice rose garden on one side.
It was a lovely visit, and I recommend it if you're interested in Napoleon. It's very good, but it's a bit of an older, stuffy French museum still.
Right. The plaques were kind of old or missing, and only in French.
Right.
And there was no audio, and there were no docents around to talk to.
No.
Right.
So you're sort of on your own.
Right, right.
And
but if you've been to Paris a million times and you have heard of this place and would like to see it, it's well worth the short trip to get there.
That's a perfect description.
Yeah. Then the next day we went to Carnavalet. Okay, that one I absolutely loved. Loved.
So Carnavalet is the museum of the city of Paris. It's basically about the history of the city of Paris, and it's one of the very few museums that is free.
Right, but you do need a timed reservation or you will not go in, and it's not easy to get because a lot of people want to go in.
Especially because it's been closed for 4 years.
Yeah, so it just reopened at the end of May.
Right. Personally, I would have wanted to go back for a couple of hours every day because it is chock full of beautiful things, very interesting things, and I feel like we rushed through it because that was a very full day.
Yeah, it was a full day.
And so we didn't have time to linger, and I would not try to do it all in one day because it's not massive like the Louvre, but it is
more than 2 hours.
More than 2 hours for sure. Probably, I would go back on a different day.
Yeah.
If you have time, you do 2 or 3 hours one day, and then on a different day you go back because
it starts
much.
It starts with prehistory in the basement and works its way all the way up through into the French Revolution.
Yes, and the displays are supremely well picked. They're very well done.
And now lots of interactive things, hallelujah, and everything is written in French and in English.
Right. So this was a stuffy French museum before they closed it, and it's not anymore. It's really good.
And it's in the heart of the Marais.
There's a beautiful garden, and now they've added a restaurant. It wasn't open yet, but I can tell you, you'll be dining. They have the umbrellas and the little tables out, and it looks gorgeous.
Right. And the way they've renovated the building, it's an hôtel particulier. It's very much like l'Hôtel de Sully.
Yeah, it's a 17th century mansion.
Right. It's the mansion is gorgeous. It's beautifully renovated. You must go, even if you're not that interested in Paris history per se, which a lot of our listeners probably are, honestly. But even if you're not, it's a free museum. Make a reservation. Make a few hours and go. And if you can. if you think you're going to be very interested, book it twice because
book because it was very popular immediately at the opening when we went.
Right. So then we went to a thing called l'Atelier des Chefs, which is a very quick little cooking class and a meal. So in half an hour, you make it, and you enter. It's kind of timed. The chef was timing himself, and he showed us how to do. We did a chicken and a mashed potato, and he showed us a few tricks, and then half an hour later we were eating it. It was, it's not very expensive.
It's like 17 euros.
17 euros for lunch. It's a very basic lunch. We had, a nice serving of mashed potato and a piece of chicken. But you could add more stuff if you wanted to. And, it was good. I think for me, who's been cooking so long and who's tried a bunch of recipes and practiced a few methods, well, several methods, I didn't learn that much.
No.
But for somebody who is a, beginner cook, I think my daughter should go, for instance. L'Atelier des Chefs has apparently a place in Toulouse, and I will buy her that.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it is. I was honestly not that impressed, really. I mean, I if I was going to take a cooking class, I would not like to do another speedy class like that. Maybe because I have been cooking for so long, and I would like to do a class where I learn things that are a little bit different from that.
Right. It felt a little basic. But if you're not an advanced cook, and if you like to speak French, because the whole thing was in French.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big advantage for visitors who would like to practice their French. It's a good idea to sign up for that. And honestly, it won't take all day. It's half an hour.
Oh, it's very quick.
And you can, I think there are 4 or 5 places in Paris. And the recipes, like for the quick lunch thing, are different every day. So there are more exotic lunches that happen, but it will be quick, and you're not going to be have time to do a lot of things in the kitchen. But I always learn something. Like the chef was good about showing me how to improve my knife technique. That I wouldn't use if somebody didn't remind me. Like, here's a better way to cut things.
Correct, yes. And he knows the techniques, and he can show them to you and help you practice it. So I thought it was worthwhile for the money. I've paid a lot of money for cooking classes in the past, years ago when I was a youngin', and this was not a lot of money, and this was pleasant. It's a beautiful little area. I thought it was very nice. And then that afternoon, I rented an e-bike and rolled my little bottom off all over Paris. I rode for almost 3 hours, and my buttocks are still complaining about it. Because those e-bikes that you rent with Vélib, so with Vélib, Patricia has a subscription, so she has a card. So she let me use her card. You just flash the card, you find the bike, which looks good, and you flash the card, and off you go with your bike, and it's a few euros an hour.
Yeah, it's very inexpensive. I have an annual subscription, so it's really not a big deal.
Right, and other companies do this. Like I saw
Uber Lime
does that as well. So Paris is now full of bicycles. Honestly, this is
and bike lanes.
Bike lanes are much bigger now.
Bike lanes, bicycles everywhere. So if you would like to discover Paris on a bike, either a regular push bike or an e-bike, it's really a good idea, because I'm hardly, a fit person, and I can still do this, and it's very fun, and you can just ride around for a few euros and discover Paris, until your bottom says no more. Get off of that bike. And I still feel it today. It's terrible. The next day, I'm still feeling it.
Well, because you did a few hours.
I did a few hours, and
But you can just ride along the Seine. I mean, if you do that, you can't get lost. You go one direction, you come back the other.
Right. So I got a little bit more daring, and I'm doing a video for patrons that I'll edit and post very soon. But yeah.
And while you were doing that, Patricia and I went to the most brand newest museum of Paris, which just opened up for the first time in its existence, called La Bourse. And it's the Fondation Pinault. Pinault, if you don't know it, is one of the richest men in the world and has an enormous collection of modern and contemporary art and has already established a museum for himself in Venice. And this is a big deal because this has been years in the works. And it's in the old commercial stock exchange building, which is this really interesting circular building in the heart of the old part of Paris. And it was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was redone by the Japanese architect
Ando.
And very interesting concept and interesting space in which to view modern art, in a very uncrowded, kind of free environment.
And it was a little, I mean, it's interesting, especially since everything in it was just part of this man's collection, and you get the impression that he must have 5,000 things besides this, he's going to show, and some of it was really strange, some of it was really interesting, a lot of it was fun, and it was a really enjoyable experience.
That's good.
It really was. There were some strange things there that are different from anything I've ever seen.
Right. So this was brand new. I mean, it just barely opened.
It just opened.
It just opened. Yeah.
And there is a restaurant on the top level.
Yes, but you must reserve.
Must reserve
well ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So it's called La Bourse.
La Bourse.
Yes, La Bourse.
And today, our last full day together, we went to Chantilly. Chantilly is this beautiful chateau. We had to take a couple of metros and then a train to get there. I had never been there myself.
Neither had I.
Elyse hadn't either, so we were really looking forward to this. Patricia had been before with friends of hers, but Patricia has been to everything before, so this is normal. It was a very interesting experience. We'll probably do a full episode about Chantilly. With Elyse.
It's kind of like a smaller, imagine a smaller version of Versailles, basically. But with a little bit of a different, much more of an emphasis on art.
And horses.
And it's famous for its horses.
If you're a horse person,
you gotta go.
You will
have to
really enjoy
yes.
Chantilly.
And for those of you who don't know it, if you're wondering what Chantilly is, think Chantilly and it's whipped cream.
Yes. La crème Chantilly.
That's where it comes from.
Yes. So we'll do an episode about that. So this is a recap of what we've done, and I want to talk about what we've found coming back to Paris, for me and Elyse anyway, after a while. Patricia has been here the whole time, so for her it's not so different. But Elyse, you're back to Paris after 2 years. What did you find?
Well, I'm actually sort of stunned by my reaction in a way, because I'm a big city girl, and but I spent 2 years feeling like I was a hermit, and so I'm finding it kind of overwhelming. Not the things I've gone to see, but walking the streets, being in the metro, dealing with so many people all the time, a lot of noise. So it's just big city stuff that I'm suddenly getting used to again, and it makes you think that this is what's happened to a lot of people because of the virus in the last couple of years. And so it's like everybody's going to come out of their cocoon now. You know? That's basically what's going on.
Yes. Paris is not as packed as it was, right?
No, I've been calling it Paris without people, or Paris sans gens, PSG.
The typical August syndrome,
Well, yeah, which is usually like just in August, but it's been going on for a year now, so.
Right, because what happens is there are hardly any tourists.
Yeah, Annie and I was just talking, like, we haven't heard or seen an American, It's just...
Very few.
I mean, the few I know that live here.
It's true.
But these were tourist Americans that are pretty good at spotting at this point.
Well, I mean, they haven't been allowed in.
Right, this is only the last couple of days.
But it is true. It is impressive, and in a very positive way, what you were saying about how many bike lanes there are now and how much bigger they are than before.
Right, you need to be really careful when you come to Paris again. Be very mindful of the bikes, because you can't hear them coming and they will not be able to stop.
Right.
This is one thing that's really important, because the bike I rented, compared to my electric bike at home, the brakes are lousy. So you can't stop on a dime. And so I was very careful to, stop at all the red lights. But, bikers, they don't. And so don't step on the curb without looking twice, because it's not a car that's going to get you. It's a bike.
And you can get them pretty much anywhere you want.
But it's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful way to discover Paris. Honestly, I was shocked how much I enjoyed it. Afterwards, it wasn't so good on my behind, but while I was doing it, it was excellent. I find that people in the metro is not as full, not as crowded, but it's still quite full. I mean,
it's still pretty full.
It's still a big city.
It's not sardine packed.
Right, it's not.
Exactly.
Right.
I didn't see any sardine situation. I saw plenty of times when we couldn't find a seat.
Yeah.
We're standing, which is fine.
It depends on the hour of the day, too.
Very much so. I would say that at least 80% of French people in the metro, anyway, are keeping their mask on.
Mm-hmm.
They are, you have the 20% that have the mask on their nose or whatever. But for most people, have a mask on and keep it on and are good about that. Didn't you think?
I thought so. I think so. Even
in public transportation. It's good.
I noticed pretty much in the streets too. I mean, people have been pretty respectful. I mean, in that respect, it was very nice, and it was not stressful. It was not stressful at all.
Yeah.
It's just that the idea, it's kind of strange realizing that you feel like you've been let out of a cage, literally, and go back to a big city. But it was really it was pleasurable.
But it would feel the same if you were going to Berlin or London.
Absolutely. I mean, that's not specific to Paris at all,
Right.
And everybody, it's what you said earlier, everyone seems happy.
Yeah.
Everyone's out. Everyone's in the cafes. Everyone's in the restaurants.
Everybody's very happy to be out.
Yes.
Everybody's very happy to be out. Parisians are friendlier. I never thought they were unfriendly to begin with. I can chat with anybody, but several people. This morning, somebody chatted longer than we wanted to, right?
Well, Annie did her Toulousean accent.
Did her Toulouse accent.
This guy just went off.
Yeah, you tell somebody that you're from Toulouse and you put it on the accent a little bit and they just want to talk to you. It makes them smile and they just want to talk, which is fine. It was pleasant, but we wanted to get to Chantilly, so I was like, hey, come on, give me the damn ticket. But enough with the rugby. We've talked about rugby long enough.
One of the things that is true, though, and people really should know it because I'm sure it's going to stay that way for a long time, is you do need reservations in every restaurant, anywhere. Absolutely, for eating. Everyone wants to be out, so it's hard.
Right. So, and any venue, anything that any museum, concert,
exposition,
theater thing, anything. Now everything is starting up again. You walk through the metro stations, and they have all these ads on the side. So you're seeing a lot of ads for events, for concerts.
New museum shows.
Right. So everything is starting up again, and it feels great. It's really not a problem, but it's good to hear a lot of French everywhere.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I've been wanting to get kind of background sound of the metro. But when I've been here, mostly in the background, I heard people speaking English. And I was like, that's not what I need. I need people speaking French in the background. And this time it was easy to find. I got several recordings that way. So, people just chit-chatting about whatever. Doesn't even matter what they were talking about. So I thought that was, as a French person, I'm kind of happy to hear French in Paris. Crazy idea. And French people and Parisians are very, very happy. Everybody treated us really nice. Even the grumpy museum people. Like this one lady asked me to, because I was going to be on a bike, Patricia loaned me a helmet, which in a bag, and I put that on my back. And when we entered the Carnavalet, the lady saw that I had a little backpack, and she asked me to remove it. And I just, I was good about it. I didn't give her guff or anything. I should have taken it off by myself. I should have known. And she was like, oh, merci d'être si coopérative or whatever she said. And I was like, I never heard a museum person be
No,
pleasant,
appreciative.
like that. Yeah. Or, that's a
the first day that the department stores opened, the salaried people working in them applauded all of the people that came in to shop. Wow. They actually applauded them. I saw it on Gallery Lafayette. They were lined up applauding. It made me practically cry.
Yeah. It's really, life is starting up again, and it's wonderful. So, if you've been vaccinated, don't fear coming. It's great.
Yeah.
If you've not been vaccinated, it's going to be more difficult. So get vaccinated.
And you may have to be patient with the websites that don't always work wonderfully when you make your reservation. So give yourself don't plan on making a reservation like at the last instant. So.
Yeah.
Right. Patricia did all the reservations for us for this trip, and
like you were having problems last night trying to.
Yeah, but that's because I forgot the G in Sargent.
Oh. Okay.
It was user error, that one.
Okay, all right.
And I should have waited for them to send me an email and reset, whatever. But we were in a hurry. I wanted to get to bed.
Yeah.
Yesterday was a big day. I was tired. I was like, I gotta get to bed, and I'm still fighting with this website. So in the end, she made it.
You've got to make an account in all of them, and then you've got to, so you just have to be patient.
Right. And they all work somewhat differently.
Oh, yeah, they're all different,
Yeah. So I can give you, people who work with me on itinerary reviews, I give you links to directly. Because also a lot of people try to sell you tickets.
Oh, yeah. That third parties, and they'll mark them up.
Right. They just mark them up. They just make you pay $20 extra when you could just go to the official website and just get it there, So.
And everything is opening.
Everything is opening. It's been lovely. The weather has been perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
A little bit hot. Yesterday was hot. Today's not quite so hot.
It's good.
It's still cooling off in the evenings. So.
Right. We haven't had a heat wave yet.
No.
This is the end. This is June, middle of June. We haven't had a heat wave yet. Last year, we had already had a full week of heat wave. So, can't complain.
It's a good beginning of a summer.
Yes.
Yeah. A great start.
It's been a great start to the summer, and I hope you're having a good time too, and you're planning to come back to Paris.
And to France.
There's a lot more than Paris. I mean, honestly, we'll keep on harping on about that, whether you like it or not.
And they have a lot of good places. So even though I live in Paris, I mean, I'm just stuck here, so I try to make the most of it. So
right. You'll come down eventually.
Yeah.
We'll drag you down eventually, don't worry. We'll get there.
It's not a foreign country.
All right. Au revoir.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Again, I want to thank my patrons for supporting the show and giving back. Patrons get several exclusive rewards for doing so. You can see them at patreon.com/join us. Patreon. Join us, no spaces or dashes. Thank you all for supporting the show. Some of you for many years now. You are amazing. And a shout out this week to new patrons: Craig Cruz, Lawrence Weiss, Brent, and Ellen Connert. Thank you so much for becoming patrons and making this podcast possible. Craig wrote, I love your show and the variety of topics you cover, sights to see as a tourist, but also current events, history, and practical advice like buying real estate and understanding French culture. I've been listening since late last year. I'm sorry it took so long to find the podcast, and I have been catching up on the episodes from the beginning of the series. That's really kind of you to say, Craig. I do my best to talk about all of the things that have to do with France and that are of interest to Francophiles. I am excited that some of you are starting to come back to France. And when you do, if you're game, I would love to do a trip report with you. Send me an email. I need more trip reports with genuine experiences from travelers. And I can see that I have a lot of listeners in Germany and in England. Come on, someone who lives in Germany or England, come on the podcast. I'd love to get your perspective. Next week, I will publish a video of Paris for my patrons. I spent almost 3 hours riding around and got a lot of real life in Paris. I know, we all love movies and TV shows and documentaries about Paris, but you know how much those are staged, right? If you want to see the real Paris, come along with me on my bike. Another way to support this podcast is to hire me to be your itinerary consultant. You send me your draft itinerary, tell me about yourself, about your group, and I craft a custom itinerary based on your wants and needs. We talk about it for an hour over the phone. I send you something in writing. I answer all your questions. To see how that works, go to joinusinfrance.com/boutique. Elyse, how is your Patreon going?
Oh, my Patreon's going slowly but steadily, and I'm in the process of preparing 2 new episodes. I just recorded one, and I've had a lot of solicitation for doing things about women in the history of France. And so I'm trying to combine that with my abécédaire. And so there's one coming up that's going to be about a woman no one knows if she existed or not, but she's a source of inspiration, especially here in and around Toulouse. And so I'm going to talk about her. And
are you going to name this woman?
Do you want me to tell you who it is? And you're from Toulouse. I think I told you already. You don't remember. Her name was Clémence Isor.
Yes, I have heard that name.
She has heard that name, yes.
But I don't know anything about her.
Right.
So, yes, I'm glad yeah, I will learn.
You will learn. And to this day, there's this mystery because no one really, really knows if she ever existed or not. But even if she didn't, people believed she existed, and then she became a source of inspiration.
Well,
so
there you go.
There you go.
Yeah,
right?
That's great.
And I would just like to give a shout out to Kathy. Thank you very, very much for becoming one of my patrons. And I hope to have some more patrons soon.
Yes. So to become one of Elyse's patrons, you go to patreon.com/ElyseArt, ELYSART. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This week in French news, the mandate to wear masks outside was lifted on June 17th, unless you're at a big demonstration or a crowded market or anywhere there are lots of people around. No more curfew after June 20th. The original date was announced to be June 27th, and they've set it back because we're doing great with COVID in France right now. The US and Canada are now on the list of green countries, which means if you've been vaccinated, you're good to travel. And if you haven't, all you need is a recent PCR test proving that you're not infected. No more pressing reason to travel. UK passport holders are still on the orange list, which means fully vaccinated plus a recent PCR test, plus a pressing reason, or at least a piece of paper that says you have a pressing reason. You know, it'll sort itself out. Maybe by the time you hear this, this will be all done. France is reopening slowly but surely. And so far, no COVID-19 spike. Let's hope this trend continues so we can put this pandemic in the rear view mirror. Around 50% of French people have had 1 dose of the vaccine and 25% have had 2 doses. Anyone over 12 can be vaccinated, and getting an appointment is not difficult at this time. They've also reduced the time between shot number 1 and shot number 2 to 4 weeks, so that people don't hold off getting vaccinated until September just because they're going on vacation. If you're coming soon and will require a COVID-19 test before you can get back on the plane to go home, fear not. Getting a test is easily done in France. The labs that do blood tests and such all do those PCR tests, and so do most of these pharmacies. But if you're going to do your test at a lab, you need to do it 2 days before your flying out date, or you may not have the results in time. I was there this morning, a father and son. So the son is flying tomorrow at 7 a.m. He came in for his test at 10:30 a.m. At this lab, and by 2 p.m. he was already bitching that he hadn't had the results. Well, they're like, we told you it'd be 24 hours, like, it's in the machine, it'll happen, sorry. And the reason why it's annoying that people are just unreasonable about this is that in France, those tests are free. Completely free. I think we're the only country in Europe and possibly in the world that does all of this for free. So I wish people were more reasonable. But if you do it at the pharmacy, a lot of pharmacies have a sign in the window that says you can get your results in 15 minutes. 15 minutes, how about that? For my personal update this week, I want to take a few minutes to tell you about the call of Brazzaville. I think it's safe to bet that all of you have heard of June 18th, 1940, the day General de Gaulle called upon French troops to rally to him in exile. He was doing this from the studios of the BBC in London. On that day, he mentioned that France was not alone, that French colonies, or what he called the French Empire at the time, was also called upon to play a role. The call of Brazzaville came soon after that speech he made from the BBC in London and took place on October 26, 1940. We have to remember that de Gaulle had no army and no territory. In fact, half of France was under German rule through invasion. We call that occupied France. The other half was under the control of Pétain, who worked with the Germans and allowed them to do whatever they wanted, including round up Jews and send them to death camps. That was Vichy's France. De Gaulle started a third France, which he called La France Libre, for which he was searching for legitimacy and institutions. He created something that he called Le Conseil de défense de la France while in Brazzaville, and he made Brazzaville the capital of Free France, which continued on for 3 years until the liberation of France. The first edition of the official newspaper of La France Libre was also published in Brazzaville. So a lot was happening, and de Gaulle was relying on the Congo and in general all of those countries that were French-speaking around the equator in Africa. He was relying on them heavily. In terms of land area and population, French colonies were 22 times bigger than the French mainland and had twice as many people living in those countries as we did in France at the time. The colonies were full of young men, many of whom were willing and eager to serve. The Chad, Cameroon, and the Congo, under the leadership of Félix Éboué, announced that they were joining de Gaulle very quickly. Félix Éboué, a black man born of emancipated slaves in French Guyana, had a brilliant career in the French administration by going through all of the schools that train administrators, and he rose in the ranks quickly. By the time de Gaulle issued his SOS to the French Empire, Éboué was the governor of Equatorial French Africa. He had an advantage in that he was black, but not African. This made it easier for him to rise above the disputes that plagued the different cultures within French-speaking Africa, and he was able to look for common ground and lead these people masterfully. The fact that Félix Éboué pledged to support de Gaulle is what gave him territory, an army, and a capital. Why Brazzaville for the capital and some other large city in the French colonies? That's because not every colony was as enthusiastic about the prospect of supporting France against German invasion. Having said that, between 1939 and 1944, there were 140,000 black soldiers who fought along French soldiers. In their own regiments, though. It was still very, very much segregated at the time. 24,000 of those soldiers were either made prisoner or killed during the war. The Senegalese tirailleurs were famous and fought both in World War I and World War II all over Africa and in mainland France. Later this year, I'll tell you about the débarquement de Provence. So you know about the Normandy D-Day. There was also a Provence débarquement, or invasion from troops. And in the Provence event, the Senegalese troops played a major role. African troops did not get the recognition they deserved, and they still haven't to this day. The Senegalese troops should have been able to parade down the Champs-Élysées in 1944, the same way the Americans and English troops did, but they were denied that honor. I can't say for sure why that was, but I can assume that it had something to do with pervasive racism. Even people like de Gaulle, who didn't seem, they didn't come across as extremely racist. I'm sure that they had, their blind spots, let's put it that way. And so don't we all? At any rate, it is clear to me that African soldiers of the French Empire came to the rescue when de Gaulle called 81 years ago, and I am grateful for their service because it is clear to me that things wouldn't have turned out the way they did without their significant help. Show notes for this episode are on joinusinfrance.com/342, where you can see a recap of what we've discussed, as well as links to relevant resources. If you enjoyed the show, introduce a friend to the podcast, show them how to listen. See, Craig might have heard about the podcast sooner if somebody had told him about it. We're everywhere. And of course, you can also listen on joinusinfrance.com. Next week on the podcast, an episode with Elyse about the newly reopened Musée Carnavalet in Paris and some tips for the things you should not miss when you go yourself. It is a fabulous place. Send questions or feedback to Annie at joinusinfrance.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France travel podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2021 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.